Hey everyone. Hey, welcome back to the Data Ideas podcast. This is Dustin, joined by Evelyn Cates, and we're going to be learning about Evelyn's career journey and experience with Disney and data visualization and storytelling and all kinds of good stuff. Excited to have you here, Evelyn. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation tonight.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I have to get it out of the way. I'm jealous because, I'm in Wisconsin, as you know, and Lynn works for this company called Disney that many of you have probably heard of, and it's in Orlando, Florida. And us from Wisconsin, that's like where we vacation, And in the next few months, Florida is going to sound really appealing.
Hilarious. Yeah, just make sure you come after hurricane season. So I guess November-ish.
Very cool. Yeah, I was telling my wife and kids that you were joining and what we're going to be talking about. And they were excited to hear it too. So,
well, I'm excited. Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks again for coming on. So I always start out with this question, of every guest. How did you first get into data and analytics? And you want to talk about just a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So I got into it in a really, really lucky way. I took a data entry job, and it was for resort inventory management. And so it was in revenue management, and I didn't even know that revenue management existed at the time. But it was just a job that needed someone Saturdays and Sundays to do resort inventory. So that was my first introduction to that world. But it wasn't until I attended the Disney Data and Analytics Conference that I got to see how data was being used throughout the company outside of the scope that I was working in. And that was really what got me excited about it. And from there, at that conference, one of the keynote speakers was Jeffrey Ma, and he had the book he was an MIT card counter. And so they would count the cards and go gambling. And he wrote a book, and that gave a lot of accessible information as far as working in the industry. And that was super exciting. I remember I still have the book, and I have a bunch of highlights and everything, and it's a signed copy. And I'm never going to get rid of this thing because it was just very eye-opening and made it attainable to where I'm okay, this is something I could pursue.
Cool. That's really interesting. And what was it that first? So you're from the area originally. You're from the Orlando area, but what was it that kind of intrigued you about Disney and brought you to Disney in the first place?
Well, really, it was just theme parks. It wasn't just Disney. So my high school is actually where the high school that I went to is right behind Universal. And so my high school is right here, Universal's right there. So I would see it every day.
That's cool.
So theme parks is part of my upbringing, and I would hang out at City Walk on the weekends and everything. So it's really a second nature, that's what we do. So I wanted to work at theme parks, and I applied at all three of them at the same day, and Disney's the one that called me back. So it was just really I applied at all three of them because I was I want to work at theme parks, and then it went from there. The rest is history 14 years later.
That's cool. That's awesome. And I love City Walk. I was actually just down there in February, March of this last year. We always go whenever we go to the Orlando area, we stop in there because, of course, it's free to go into the City Walk area.
Yeah, it's free. You have movie theaters, food, everything is in one spot. Yeah, I love it.
That's cool. That's awesome. And so when you first got a role at Disney, you got into theme parks, what did you start out doing?
Yeah, so I was an usher. So technically it's attractions at Finding Nemo the musical, and I was an usher. So really just helping people where to sit and making sure that people aren't laying down so we can get as many people in to watch the show as possible. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I ventured out because I was in such a specific area at Animal Kingdom, and I wanted to work everywhere. I became a character attendant, which is a security guard for the characters.
Yeah.
And so I got to work at all four parks, all these crazy shifts and everything. And then, I can keep going. I worked in resorts and whatnot. I also did guest research where I would walk around the parks and survey guests and get their inputs on what they liked about the food, attractions, or anything like that.
That's really cool. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the advantages that gave you as an analytics professional, having all of this kind of firsthand experience, working in customer facing roles for an organization, because I think even though this is really cool and unique experience at Disney, the same like can be true for other industries and organizations too. Like there can be advantages to getting that firsthand experience, like kind of in non-technical roles, and that can help you down the road once you get into a technical role. So looking forward to talking a little bit more about that later in the episode. One thing I just wanted to do is take a quick pause. I see some folks joining. If you are joining the live stream, just wanted to say hello, and also let us know in the chat where you're coming from. It's always good to see who's joining us live. And of course, if you are listening to the recording, hello to you as well. But let us know in the chat if you're joining live, who you are and where you're coming from. So fast forward to today. So we just heard how you started at Disney. You've been with Disney for a long time. You've been in theme parks for a long time. What's your current role?
Yeah, so my current role is super interesting. So I work with consumer data. And so what we do, or what we want to learn from that data, is really understanding how consumers are interacting with like our franchises and characters, and use that to drive business decisions as far as like what's going to be a driver that they see in the theme park or in cruise lines that's going to make them want to come visit us. Yeah. So I'm really in that middle part of, I work with the data. And so I also like am constantly presenting that data out to my partners and everything.
Cool. Awesome. And so obviously a little bit different role than what you started with. Very cool. What's, I guess, like, what's it like working in such a fun area, like an area that's so like just associated with like vacations and things like that? Like, do you think about that in the day to day? Like, is that like something that you and your colleagues talk about, or like do you just kind of like not notice it? Or
yeah, honestly, you take it for granted after a while. And then you have moments where you're just like, oh, this is actually happening. Like one time, I went out it was my birthday. My team surprised me with a birthday dinner and everything. And then I'm driving home and fireworks are going on as I'm driving home. And I was like, oh, this isn't like an everyday thing,
Right.
So you have the moments where you're reminded like this isn't normal for the rest of the country, but you do take it for granted. It's just like, yeah, let's go to Magic. Like I'm going to Magic Kingdom tomorrow, and I'm just like, okay, like just another activity. But yeah, I'm really excited. Like until I'm talking about it, I don't realize how fun some of the things are. Like my presentations and the types of things that I'm talking about they're really, really exciting. And they're products that I like watching, so then it's like, oh, okay, I understand it.
Interesting. Very cool. And in terms of the data and analytics community in Orlando, can you tell us a little bit about that, or are you plugged into that? What does the community look like there?
Yeah, so not as much, because since data is so big at Disney, that's really where I have been like plugged in and following and everything.
Okay.
And then I do so much online, but it is growing for sure. There's a lot of like, I know I joined a couple like Power BI events and everything to meet in person, but I also have a toddler, so then I don't get out as much after work. It's more of a process. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of events and community around it.
Cool. Nice. That's awesome. And I guess like kind of similar to Orlando in general, like Disney is super unique in that there's all these fun memories associated with it. Like, and you mentioned you like the products that you're doing analysis on yourself.
Yeah.
But what's it like just in general? You mentioned there's a lot of, analysts that work there. Like, what's it like to work in analytics specifically at a place that like so many people know so much about? Like I feel like I've worked for some organizations that like are pretty well known, but like I don't think anywhere that's like as recognizable as Disney. Like so like when people hear you work there, like do they want to like ask a ton of questions about it? Just like what is that kind of like?
Yes and no. So everybody gets excited when I tell them I work at Disney, but then when I'm like talking about my job or just data in general, then that's really where they'll stop listening, because they just want to hear more of like the back magic. They want you to like spill the secrets, talk about logistics and things like that, and I'm like, no. It's really interesting, because they're just like, oh, okay, this isn't really what I want to talk about, unless it's someone who is into data, then they're asked the specific stuff and things like that. But yeah, usually everyone always wants to know about it. So it's always very interesting, but then it's like I work with such proprietary information that I always have to
Right.
watch
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. And so speaking of kind of the stuff that you're working on, knowing that you can't divulge too much about it, but can you share an example of a type of project that you're working on? I think folks would be really interested in hearing, like, just like what kind of data projects would someone be working on at Disney?
Okay, so I'll say anything in the entertainment space. So
Okay.
any type of entertainment thing, I pretty much touch, which is really cool. But one of the funnest things I actually got to do last month was go into the parks and survey guests. So I really do love to do that because it's like that qualitative data that I don't always
Right.
get
Hmm.
to work with, and just talking to guests directly about their experiences and everything. Like, people want to tell you what they liked and what they didn't like. And it's so beneficial to just get it right from the source and being part of it. It
Hmm.
also reminds you too of like the work that you're doing. Cause sometimes it's like you get caught up in the data, and then now it's
Hmm.
like, oh, this is who the data is about. And so you're reminded of like who you're representing and like who you're trying to entertain through all the work that you're doing.
That's really interesting. And just wanted to
Mhm.
give a shout out to a few folks joining in live. So, um, someone's joining from Blackwell, Oklahoma.
Oh,
Due to
cool.
security reasons, I can't see who this person is. It says LinkedIn user, but hello from Oklahoma. And then someone's joining from Minneapolis. Lindsay, who was actually a guest on a previous episode, said she's joining from the Indianapolis area. And Irina says she's joining from
Oh, Orlando.
Orlando. Uh, yeah,
Awesome.
and then Marquise Warren joining from Polk County, Florida, as well. So it looks like you've got some folks from Florida joining.
Yeah. That's my best friend.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, cool.
He
Awesome.
actually started
And s
working at Universal when we were in high school. Because back in the
oh,
day,
no
you can
kidding.
work. Yeah, 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 when we were like 14, 15.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wild. That's
So
really
theme park,
cool. That's
yeah, theme park definitely runs deep in our blood.
that's cool. That's really cool. And cool that there's so many like data roles in general around theme parks. Like I see a ton of, as you know, and many of the listeners know, I post a um, posting on LinkedIn every Friday that kind of gives a rundown of all of the analytics positions that I see shared in my LinkedIn feed over the course of the week. And I do see a ton in entertainment and hospitality, but specifically in theme parks. I see a lot in Disney,
Mhm.
Universal, and recruiters for those technical roles. So it's really interesting that there's such a robust kind of data and tech community within the entertainment and theme park industry.
Yeah, and I think if anybody is interested in this type of industry, just always keep your eyes out, because my first analyst role was in people insights in corporate HR.
Hmm.
And I didn't really, before I was interviewing and whatnot for it, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it is still relatively new, but it's
Hmm.
like people insights is still something that could be done, you know? And so it's like, there's so many areas, and like I'm in consumer insights now. So I went from working from with people in the back end to people in the front end. So there's so many different roles that could be done. Don't let job titles deceive you, because that's another thing.
And then hello to Carlos as well, joining from North Carolina. If you are joining the live, let us know who you are, where you're joining from. It's always good to see who's joining the live chat. And if you do have a question, toss it in the chat, and maybe we'll have a minute or two to get to a question or two at the end. But thanks to everyone that's saying hello so far. Glad to have you here in the live. Thinking about some of those early experiences that you had, you got to understand kind of things at an operational level. You got that hands-on experience early on. Like thinking about how that connects to your current position and the advantages it gives you in working in data and analytics. Like, can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about how that's helped you be a better analyst?
For sure. So I feel like every part of it has, but like the first one is because I worked at resorts. So I worked front desk and concierge. And another thing, so there's like 20 Disney hotels, and I worked at a lot of different ones. And so I
Hmm.
had a lot of business knowledge as far as how resorts worked. And that gave me an advantage when I got my first data role, because I already understood how resort inventory worked, and so the management aspect of it. So that
Mhm.
was like one of the first ones, and I did guest research. So I was going around the parks and just asking people if they would fill out my survey. And so that also kind of goes to my job now because I'm still working with consumer data, and so that gives me a lot more insights into it. I could keep going, but those are just like some of the biggest ones that really gave me a leg up. I also was a traditions
Feel free to
facilitator.
keep going. Yeah, that's
Oh,
great.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
I was a traditions facilitator, and so everybody's first day at Disney, you basically have to go to like a Disney class, and it's like 101. It's an 8-hour class, and so you're just learning about Wall and from like the beginning to where we are now. And so
Hmm.
I facilitated those classes. It was a script, and so that really got me into like being able to public speak and everything.
Yeah, for
And
sure. Wow.
and you have to be a little bit more magical and pixie dusty more and like on top of it because you're on stage and everything. So that really just taught me how to like connect with my audience. And I actually also did those in Spanish, and that was the very first time I ever did anything in Spanish in a professional setting. And that was also a different environment. So that was really like the beginning of learning connecting with my audiences in different point of views. So yeah, those were all things that I take now into my role.
That's really cool. And can you give an example of like what does it look like to be more magical in a presentation or to add some sparkle to it? Because I think like that's important. I feel like there's some like data presentations that lack that and like could benefit from that. So I'm just curious what that looks like.
Yeah, I guess very cheerful and just trying
Hmm.
to get the enthusiasm going and making you love everything that I love. Like, isn't
Hmm.
that amazing? Like,
Hmm.
wasn't that such a great video? And you're
That's
just
cool.
like, it
Yeah.
was a 2-minute video from the CEO.
Hmm.
So, yeah, just really like engaging them and making them want to be excited for what they're doing, for what you're seeing.
Cool. And would you say that you bring like some of that pizzazz to like if you get like really excited about presenting a data project or releasing a new data product, like do you kind of bring that style or is it a little bit different?
No, I definitely do because my audience is non-technical. So I present
Yeah.
a lot
Hmm.
to Disney Imagineering, and they're the ones that are creating what's in the theme parks, a lot of people in entertainment. So since that's my audience, then I definitely pump up the excitement. Like before my presentations, I always listen to music. And so I'm like, okay, I need to carry that
Hmm.
energy across because since it's my non-technical audience, then they're not going to be as excited about the data. So I really have to bring that energy and increase the visuals and things like that on my slides.
That's cool. That's really interesting. Actually,
Yeah.
I've heard like some folks that are really into public speaking, and sometimes I find I do this myself before like bigger presentations or like large group presentations, or if I'm going to be facilitating like a lengthy meeting or something like you do have to kind of like get yourself pumped up for it. And
Yes.
so
Mhm.
like listening to music works for some folks. Exercising your vocal cords. I know I've seen some podcast hosts like post like a like parody video, of like them warming up their vocal cords before going on their podcast, things like that. But it really can be helpful just in terms of like getting loosened up and kind of like hyped up
Mhm.
to give a presentation. I think audiences benefit from that as well.
Yeah, and so I always listen to music. If I'm not listening to music, then I'm like, what's going on? Like it's part of my routine now. And I
Mhm.
also try to incorporate music within my presentation. So like when everybody's first
Mm.
joining, like those 2 minutes are so awkward because you're
Right.
waiting for
Yeah.
people to join,
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, you're just sitting here waiting. So I try to play music during that time because it also calms me down and it's like a
Yeah.
really good marker, and then it gets people excited for what's to come. So those are just like another little
That's
snippets like
interesting. Hmm.
yeah, like make it's an experience, right? So I think about like, okay, what's going to be the experience even if we're online, because it's like we all have so
Yeah.
many needs. There's so much stuff that you're constantly like in a cycle. So it's like, how
Mhm.
can we make this a little bit more exciting in such a way that seems like easy, make that emotional connection.
Very cool. No, those are good tips. And so thinking about the fact that you are in a data role now, heavily immersed in a data role at Disney, and you entered in a very different role early on in your career, a non-technical
Mhm.
role, you know, I'm sure you get asked these questions that I do as well. It's a lot of folks ask like, hey, like me or my son or daughter, just finished a degree program and they're trying to get that first data role and they're really struggling and the market seems hard, and things like that, which is totally understandable to ask those questions.
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, what do you think about, like, would you encourage folks to try to, like, just kind of start at an organization, get your foot in the door, whether it's a data role or not, and then kind of like maybe use your data expertise in that position, or like just learn as much as you can and then try to like work internally into a data role like you did? Or like, what do you think about how your experience translates to someone that might be in early career stage in the job market right now?
Oh, I always recommend someone to just get started, especially because you really don't know what is there. Like even internally, there are jobs that I don't even know about. So if you're able to get in and experience everything, then that's like the best way to learn. Because I didn't know resorts revenue management was a thing when I was 23. Like that wasn't what I
Right.
was going to school
Yeah.
for. And so it's like if
Yep.
you're able to get in, have these experiences, it's always going to be beneficial because even then I knew I was like, okay, I can now go work at any type of resorts. And so it's like it also opens up the industries that you're able to work in. And like
Right.
Disney has the college program. And so it's like you're in college and you can come and work in the theme parks for an internship. And it's also like a learning opportunity. And I'm like, this is one of the best ways to get in because you just network. And it's like, we have an internal directory and you can email anybody in the company, and like meet and greets are so common, and nobody really says no. So once you're able to get in, you can connect with anyone in the company. So I'm like, always just try to get in. It doesn't matter if it's a data role,
Hmm.
and you never know
Hmm.
what other roles you're going to learn about that are still developing, especially the way that the landscape is now. So many new jobs are going to
Hmm.
start forming that unless
Hmm.
you're in that realm, you might not learn about it.
Yeah, totally. And I was thinking back to like when I first like, because a lot of times folks will be like, oh, like, what did you go to college for to do the job that you had now? And it's like, well, I mean, first of all, when I went to college, like there were no data science
No,
programs. And
I
also,
didn't know.
like,
Amazing. Yes.
and so it's like I almost have to like yeah, take a step back when I get asked that question, because it's like so hard to connect, the what I did to
Mhm.
what I'm doing now, but and the path, because it was not linear at all. But it's I kind of think back, I did the same thing. Like I took an internship just in business when I finished my MBA, and then I like took the most entry level analytics role that I could find the second that I had an opportunity to do it, and then just kind of tried to do my best with it and work my way up from there, but it started with a non-technical role to get
Yeah.
some respect, and then baby step towards like a really junior level role, and then so on and so forth. It's like and to your point, I had no idea that,
Mhm.
so I work in data enablement now, right? Like, first of all, that wasn't a field at the
Right.
time. So there's no way I could have gone to college for that. Right. But also, like, I had no idea that this would even be a thing in, 12 or
Mhm.
13 years down the road. So it does take just getting immersed and starting at square one and getting your feet wet. So
Yeah.
I like that advice. Yeah.
Another point too, especially with data roles, you see stuff online where it's like learn to code in like 2 days. And then you're just like, okay, cool. But like some things also take like development takes some time, and it's
Right.
like you want to learn
Mhm.
to code in 2 days, but then like you might not land a job in 2 days. So like you really can't get discouraged. It took me over 2 years to land my first analyst role. So
Okay.
it's like
Yeah.
get out there, learn, it takes some time. Definitely do what you can with what you have and keep going from there. And you never know who you're going to meet or what you're going to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And did just want to take a step back to let folks know I do see some other folks joining. Appreciate everyone saying hello in the chat. If you are joining live, let us know who you are, where you're coming from. It's always good to see who's joining live and be able to say hello. Um, so you have speaking about what did we go to college for? You actually got a master's degree in data science. Can you talk a little bit about, did you do that while you were working full time?
Yes. So
Okay.
the story on this, because it's always the story, right? So I was going out for analyst roles, and I wasn't. I had the business skills, but not the technical side, right? And
Hmm.
so Disney paid for my master's degree up front
Oh, cool.
through their
Okay.
Aspire program. Yeah. So then but this master's program was very set up to where, like, if you've never done anything in analytics before, it was
Hmm.
for you. So I dove into that knee deep. And yeah, I got my master's in data science, but it was also because they paid for it. And then I did that full time. And then I also had a kid in the middle of that. So that was
Hmm.
crazy time.
Gotcha. And so what do you have, like, do people ask you, like, do you think it's worth, going back and getting a master's degree in data science specifically if they want to get into analytics or move up? Or how do you answer that? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's a lot of thoughts. I only got my master's because my job paid for it, honestly. I also told myself after college that I wasn't going to go for another degree if I didn't know exactly what I was going to get out of it, because I just went to college and picked a degree, you know? And so
Mhm.
after gaining that knowledge, I was like, whenever I do go for a master's, if I do go for it, I'm going to know exactly what I'm getting out of it. And then I also didn't want to pay. And so my job paid for it. So I'd say it's several answers to that question. You definitely don't need a master's degree to get into data or data analytics. Having the technical skills and really learning the business and like what you can solve is what's gonna be helpful, and networking. So I think it
Mhm.
really depends. But it did give me the structure that I needed because I was working full time, and so it was like I had deadlines, right? So then I had to think of like, okay, when am I going to study? Because studying after work wasn't always feasible. So then I had to cut out my social life a little bit and study on the weekends. And then once my daughter
Mhm.
was born, then that was a different ball game as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely gave me a good structure. So if you're someone who needs a plan and a layout, it was helpful, because motivating yourself can get old sometimes. And you're like, I don't want to keep doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's and I finished graduate school while working full time myself, and it's definitely hard to
Hmm.
do. Um, but that's very cool. It's really nice when you do have some employer, tuition assistance or educational assistance. That's a big boost, and the ROI is definitely important to
Yeah.
consider. I mean, and there's an investment of your time as well. But I mean, if your employer pays for it, it's easier to get a good ROI if you're investing $0 in it,
Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
And really, like,
uh,
even analyze your time, because
yeah,
I would get an hour lunch, and then I'm like, okay, that's five
yeah.
hours that I can dedicate to one class. So I started using my lunchtime to do homework every now and
Gotcha.
again. And
Yeah,
so that would also make me feel a little better about cutting out some movie trips on the weekends or things like that.
yeah. So you mentioned, you have, you know, pretty deep level of technical expertise, but you've mentioned in a recent post on LinkedIn that you're spending most of your time communicating insights, telling stories with data. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about why this is so important and why you're spending so much time on that right now?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much the person in charge of the data on my team, right? As far well, like
Yeah.
my team, we're in charge of this consumer data, and it's so specific because everyone that is taking our survey is a theme park acceptor. So it's someone who wants to go to a theme park or any type of Disney experience, and so we're communicating that data out to our partners, and so this is what they're deciding as far as like, hey, which characters are we going to include in our theme parks? What franchises are we going to promote whenever
Hmm.
we have any advertisements coming up?
Hmm.
And so being able, like, you're the person who they're going to go to for the data. So it's like you have to know the data, but then you also have to present it in a way that's engaging and makes sense for their line of business and what their business strategy is.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And so you mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast that you started out by doing some trainings that were not necessarily technical, and that's helped you a little bit in terms of presenting today in your current role. Like, do you feel like it's taken like practice to get good at telling stories with data specifically and like communicating insights specifically from data? Has that gotten easier over time? Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly practicing because there's a lot of times where, since I'm so deep in the data, there's things where I don't even think are that impactful, or like I might want to dig too deep and really dive into
Yeah,
that when it's like I need to just provide high level and
yeah,
then go from there. Yeah, and so I'm constantly like, even when we got our questions, like I'm writing down my thoughts and
yeah.
then making sure that it's a
Right.
flow and a process, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like it
yeah.
makes sense for someone
Hmm.
without any context, right? Because I'm
Right.
breathing this the whole time and then presenting it out. So yeah, it's a lot of practice that goes into it, and just a lot of like making sure that there's value in this, because it's like I can tell you 25%, but it's like what do I do with that? What's the value behind it, and how does this really impact the
Hmm.
business and help me make decisions from here?
And I think that speaks to just the importance of like preparation too, regardless of like how seasoned someone may be as a data professional or even as a speaker. Like I feel if I don't prepare for things, like sometimes it goes okay, like because my comfort is a little bit higher at this stage in my career, but also like sometimes I'm still pretty humbled by how
Mhm.
things go if I don't prepare for it, right? And like I feel like it's just like taking that time before you present to think through kind of the messaging and the top two or three things that you want to get across for each slide, going through that process mentally. Sometimes I don't even speak it out loud. I just think through in my mind on each slide, like what do I want to talk to and what's the main takeaway I want to give. And just that process really helps when it comes time to actually deliver the presentation. Like I've already thought through everything in my mind. I'm not like fumbling around with thinking through on the fly what I want to draw the audience's attention to. I've
No.
already thought through that, right? And it's interesting because right now, like you're not reading from notes, even though you were very well prepared, I know, for this, right? But you're just speaking on the fly, it seems like to me now.
Yeah. But that's the
Mhm.
thing too, though, is like, well, for this time I didn't do it, but for my work presentations,
Yeah.
I have my speaker notes, and then as
Hmm.
much as I hate it, like I despise it, but I record myself giving the
Oh, really?
presentation and then I watch it. And
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
having to give yourself useful feedback that's not like you suck is so hard, but
Hmm.
it definitely helps as far as you're speaking too fast. There's too many ums in there. Uh,
Yeah.
what did you even say? Like, what's the takeaway? Because there's some times
Hmm.
where I'm like, you're just saying words and I don't even know what my message
Right.
is. So that really helps me clock in as far as like, okay, this is what needs to be on the slide, and make sure that they remember these three things from here.
Right. And
Yeah.
what so you mentioned the recording, which is really, I mean, rigorous preparation, but I'm sure your audience ends up really appreciating that because it ends up, being a really solid presentation that's audience focused, which is awesome. What do you have any other tips that you give to folks that are, you know, you must be asked from time to time from folks like about, before they might be getting nervous before presenting something in a meeting or whatever. Like what tips do you give on presenting data for folks to get better at it, or maybe in the moment, like maybe be a little less nervous, or like what advice do you give to other people?
Yeah, the biggest thing is practicing. Just practicing and just getting the words out, right? Because it's like if you're
Hmm.
only just reading it, it's like you have to feel the words in a way, for lack of better terms. But it's just like the words have
That's
to
adding
come
the
out.
magic, I think, that you were talking about earlier.
I know. It's so engraved in you. You don't even realize it sometimes. But it's really like you have to go through the motions, because it's like I
Right.
don't want to just sit here and read something out to you, because that's not going to be engaging, and that's not how I want to watch presentations. So I also think of like, okay, how, if I have to watch this, how do I want to watch this? How is this going to be fun for me? And so yeah, just getting it out. I'm always like talking to my husband about it. He doesn't know any of it, but he's just forced to hear me talk on it. And so that just helps me. And that's also a good indicator, because sometimes when I'm presenting to him, there'll be some
Hmm.
things that stick out that I'm like, oh, so that was what landed. And then that helps me too, as far as like, so this is good. Let me keep this, and then let me add that in other points of the
Mhm,
presentation. Yeah. So also, like, if you are practicing with family members and like they don't care, then it's like, wait,
mhm.
where did the tension go up, and things like that. That's
Interesting.
another trick I use.
No, that's really good because you mentioned that like maybe he and it's a good test too because well, I don't know, is your husband a data practitioner? He's not, right? You
No,
said
no, no,
no.
no. He's a
Okay.
recruiter. Yeah.
Okay. So and that's and so in my family it's the same thing. You know, I'm the only data professional and that's
Yeah.
sometimes I'll run things by not only my wife but also I'll share things with my kids just to get their first reaction, you know, and sometimes that really like just initial reaction like it tells you a lot, you know, whether it's
Mhm.
intuitive or not. And that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that recently, but that has made me change how I think about presenting some things sometimes myself.
Yeah, and another thing, my daughter will ask me about my meetings and my presentations, and she'll
Yeah.
actually ask me like, "What did you talk about?" So I use
Hmm.
that for practice, and I'm like, "How can I tell her about this in a way that she'll remember terminology?" Right? She's not gonna know, the data points for theme park in Hong Kong, but she will know like if I'm talking about a franchise and the significance of it, and so I use that
Right.
too as another indicator.
Cool. And just a couple comments to pull up here. Irina was saying, and I think this is when we were talking about like analytics not having formal degree
Oh
programs
yeah.
around it, you know, until recently. But she says this brings back memories from early 2000s. It wasn't common, especially in the HR field. And that's actually a really interesting comment because HR
Uh-huh.
analytics, people analytics is a really exploding field, you know,
Mhm.
subfield, whatever you want to call it right now. And I'm sure there's, you know, um, if not formal degree programs, lots of, you know, boot camps and things like that
Yeah,
around that
yeah. Data
area
governance.
specifically. Oh, for
Data
sure. Exactly. Yeah.
another one of mine.
Someone
Mhm.
else joining from LinkedIn user. Sorry, we can't see your name, but appreciate you joining from Lake Buena Vista. That's actually where I had my Airbnb back earlier
Oh,
this year. So.
it was like 30 minutes from my house.
Very cool. I'll probably be looking at another one in a few months from now. But
I can
so
give
this
you
has
some
been
resort recommendations.
okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
appreciate
have all
that.
the resort recommendations.
I bet. That's awesome. And we did actually when I went down there earlier this year, we actually went to Magic Kingdom and I hadn't been there
Oh,
since I
really?
was a kid. So it was really cool. Yeah,
What
it
did
was
you
really
think?
cool. No, I thought it was awesome. And
Yeah.
I went on, you know, my favorite part was the new Tron
Yes.
ride. Well,
Yes.
newish, I guess. Yeah.
It came
Um,
out in 23. Mhm.
okay. In 2023.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. My son, he really wanted to go on it, and I wasn't sure about like the 70 or 80 minute wait, but it was, I can tell anyone listening, it's well worth it.
Yes.
I also wasn't totally sure about the people like riding it upside down at 60 miles per hour, you know, above me and
Yeah.
behind me while
On
I
a
was waiting. But
motorcycle.
yeah, exactly. But
I know.
it was very cool.
When it takes off, and then I'm always like, "Why did I sign up for this?" Like, I'm like, "I shouldn't have done this." But then afterwards,
Yeah.
it's really fun. I haven't gotten to go on it at night. That's definitely one of the rides that I want to do is at night. But I got to go on it before it was open to
Oh,
guests,
really?
and so that was great because I've never waited any minutes for it. So that was fun.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's they make it where like you go through kind of like they kind of start the experience like
Yes.
halfway through your time in the line because you kind of go inside and they have some cool stuff
Mhm.
going on there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely well done. But I would recommend anyone to check it out. You go from 0 to 60 in like 2 point some seconds or something
Yeah,
like that.
and
Yeah.
you're, like, riding a motorcycle, and you're like, "Why? Why am I doing this to myself? I don't have to
Right.
do this," you know? I can go right in it too.
Yeah, I was glad I did it. And actually it started early evening when we were waiting so it was still light out, but it was like it was pretty dark out by the time we did it. So it was pretty cool.
Oh,
Uh
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
so this has been a really fun discussion and definitely the first person that I to be honest with you, first person I think that I've talked to that works at Disney. I knew a couple other folks we met, you know, I know we discussed in the pre-meeting, but a couple of other folks that work in the Orlando area for some other companies, but I don't think I'd ever talked with anyone at Disney for as many analytics jobs as I see posted there. So this was really cool to hear a little bit more about what's going on at Disney and get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm glad I was able to share it. It's so funny because it's like until you're talking about it, you definitely take it for granted. And I've been here for so many years that it's really just like second nature. So yeah, really happy to share my experiences.
Cool. Awesome. And how can folks follow, your content or, follow you on LinkedIn, or where's the right place to follow you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn. I've been a lot more active on LinkedIn the past year. So follow
Okay.
me on here. I'm on it every day now. So yeah,
Okay.
follow me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Very cool. So we will put a link to Evelyn's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So you can click on that and follow her on LinkedIn. Thanks so much. I didn't see any questions in the chat, and we're at the 40-minute mark here. So again, thanks for coming on. It was fun talking with you, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.